Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting propaganda cast with me, host and in this specific, though, a Propagandacast Addendum. Yes, indeed, and today we're going to talk about tank riding and what I really want to see that in Company 3 and what I think it could add to the game, and also, you know how to do it in some way. So, I mean, overall, why do you want a tank ride? Why do you want infantry to ride along in tanks? And part, A, it's kind of cool, but also B, it actually happened in the war. Infantry just ride along on tanks. There weren't always vehicles along there. Plus, it could so that way act as, tank escorts. And, in that regard, I mean, hell, if you look at a lot of factors, in particular from the Eastern Front, both the Germans and the Russians, there were a lot of tank riders. Hell, there were a lot of Stug riders for the Germans. So in that regard, it just sort of adds this sort of, aesthetic, historical element to the game of, infantry riding along on tanks, just for starters there. It also, gives you more mobility with infantry, allows, factions that want to play aggressive to play more aggressively, because, again, suddenly infantry can also keep pace with your tanks a lot more. So, it would suddenly add, several elements to the game, and not just, again, sort of gameplay, but aesthetic elements, and I do think aesthetics tend to get neglected or downright underestimated at times in games. So, I mean, just by adding tank riding, which they, by the way, were actually briefly considering adding with the Western Front armies, but for the reasons had to stop doing, unfortunately. I'm not sure why. I don't think there was any particular explanation for it. So, I mean, I think, that's something that can add something to the game just on a basic level. I mean, again, hell, imagine the Oberkommando West, if its infantry could ride longer, the tanks could also allow the faction to operate a lot more aggressively. Now, how would it sort of you do it? I mean, essentially, you just, like looking for something, vehicle, you just, right-click, pop up, they'd be there, you'd see them running along in the tank. Now, problems, of course, they wouldn't be able to fight from the tank. In fact, they'd have a, penalty for being on the tank because they'd be pretty fat targets. And, of course, at the same time, that means, well, hang on, does that mean I have to manage them? And, of course, what I do then is actually add such that as soon as any fighting happens around the tank, the infantry immediately begins dismounting. They don't have to come on and fight, they just need to be fighting within a certain distance of the tank with the infantry on it, and the infantry just dismounts. I mean, that way, of course, you'd also then have incentives to actually try and set up ambush if your opponent likes to ride along there. help mines could also be pretty effective. Tank drives along with infantry on it, hits a mine, boom! So there'd also be incentives, creating minesweepers and all that, just laying down mines in that way as well. But just having, auto pop, that'd be an incentive. Well, you wouldn't have to manage that much, when all of a sudden, things get hot. And, there'd at least be, something going on there, which I think would also help to make this a real more attractive mechanic. Because, you're under fire, then you suddenly have to, manage infantry getting off the tank, while everything else is going. I think there'd just be too much management going on there. So, I think just having the infantry automatically dismount in those situations would be the preferred situation. Sort of as my own personal perspective. Then might of course ask, well, what about half-tracks then? What's the purpose in getting half-tracks? Well, for starters, half-tracks can transport infantry about without the infantry getting shot to bits as soon as things start firing. And again, you can still have infantry firing out from half-tracks, in particular if they actually get around to adding to the German half-tracks relic. The 251 half-track, I mean, that could also that way give incentives. Plus, take it a step further and maybe, giving us some bonuses from finding their half-tracks, maybe, So technically, the half-tracks did create a lot of supplies and other things there for the infantry, so there could be some sort of benefit for fighting around the half-track a bit like this from fighting around the Oberblitz for the Oberkommando West. So, I mean, those could be some ways, of incentivizing half-tracks as well. Plus, you could carry out more infantry than just one infantry squad and a tank, or even, say, a light vehicle, maybe, depending on the type. So, I think, just by doing that, again, we'd see, also just, again, just allow players who want to play aggressively in some interesting ways, play more aggressively, give them more options for playing aggressively, and also just, do more stuff with the tanks and infantry than currently is. That way allowing, players to more easily have the infantry keep pace with the tanks because they're riding along. So that could also set up for some potentially interesting attacks, but also defensive maneuvers. You're quickly just shifting infantry from side to side, using the tanks as transport if you don't have, trucks or half-tracks. So, I mean, I think there's, a lot of good reasons, just, add tank running to the game again. It's just, it's cool. It's, historical, aesthetically fits, and, again, it can also just allow for more gameplay choices and options for the players in question, which I also think is quite valuable personally. So, I mean, overall, just think there's in fact, no real reason not to add tank riding, particularly, of course, remember, to add some kind of automatic dismount so infantry gets off as soon as things get sticky so they don't get horribly murdered by the enemy. If you do that again, I think, tank riding could just become a nice sort of added element to the game that, adds some fun, some interesting bits, and, just is entertaining for everyone. So that's sort of the idea here for the Propagandacast on tank riding an element. Again, I want to see it to come to free again. They had considered it for companies too, but for reasons, again, it never happened. Who knows why? I don't recall if there was given a reason. Particularly, they probably just figured it couldn't work out. Maybe they didn't consider an automatic, dismount thing. Who knows? Maybe it was that part that gave them problems from other technical issues. But again, I think it's something that if they do get around to doing a company's fee, it would be a really cool idea to add. So there you go. I hope you agree. Or if you disagree, if you disagree or even like, you just want to sign off in the comments. Give your own thoughts on the subject matter. This is Imperial Lane signing off. See you all another time for another video. And of course, if you like what I do consider donating. Links in the video description. Cheers, everybody, and see you all for another video. Cheers.